Literally, like, resume reads literally like one of the greatest in the history of the wrestling business. He's a WWE Hall of Famer. He's a WWF World Champion, a WWF Intercontinental and Tag Team Champion, as well as a 5-time WCW Heavyweight Champion and a 9-time WCW Tag Team Champion. It is our pleasure and honor to welcome in Big Daddy Cool, Big Sexy, Kevin Nash. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. What's up?
Been coming back to Richmond, pretty big in your history. How do you feel about getting back to that part of the Mid-Atlantic?
You know, it's funny because Richmond was a big town when I first got into. Also, with my first run in WCW, I think I wrestled as Oz and as Vinny Vegas in Richmond before.
That's a pretty big part of your history, because I got two moments right in front of me that I got to say, I mean, if you think about wrestling in the 90s, two moments that you were part of, both in the WWF and WCW, really kind of changed the landscape for a little bit. The first one is the heel promo in 95 after the Survivor Series, where the Big Daddy Cool persona returned. And then the first Nitro to beat Monday Night Raw in the span of the 83 weeks happened in Richmond, Virginia.
Right.
So that's a lot of history.
Right.
Yeah, that's a lot of history in one. But I got to tell you, and this is not blowing smoke in your direction, but your promo in 95 after the Survivor Series is my favorite promo in the history of professional wrestling.
And I sold a ton of black gloves after telling him you didn't have to buy black gloves.
And it's so funny. I was definitely one to buy one, but not only that, I mean, it was like, it's one of those that you go back and you listen to so many times that you can remember it word for word. And I'm not gonna do it now, because I don't want to look like that much of a fanboy, and I don't want to embarrass myself before we meet in Richmond. But it was just so cool at the time, because we didn't see that kind of fourth wall being broken. And you're talking about being in Titan Tower and the marketing people telling you to be a good guy and to smile. Doing that, was that kind of cool for you to break that fourth wall and kind of bring us in the inside at that point in the business?
Yeah, I was trying to do it forever. You know, like if you look at, like, when I lost to Brett, like, I made sure when I said, you know, MFer, you know, like, I made sure that they got that. And then in that Royal Rumble, when I went down and interfered with Taker and Brett, I flipped Undertaker off. I know for a fact I'm the first person that flipped somebody off on TV. Like, they were both pay-per-views, but I mean, it was just like one of those things, like there's, like, you know, and then I always drag the belt, you know, so it was like one of those things, like, you know. And I remember, I've told the story a million times, but, you know, at that time the movie Heat was popular. And at the end, you know, I was talking to Vince, and he was, you know, and we had just had the conversation like a year earlier, where we were all in the room as all the Click guys, and we were talking to Vince, and, you know, we said, like, at Hartford, wouldn't you rather have, like, you know, 15,000 people and 7,500 for the babyface and 7,500 for the heel, instead of just, you know, everybody, you know, like 8,000 people for the babyface? He goes, no, I just rather, like, I wanted, you know, and we're like, no, dude, you don't get it. Like, the anti-hero is the way to go. So then when that Heat movie came out at the end, I said, you know, who are you for? And he goes, oh, De Niro. I said, he was the heel. And you could kind of see the light bulb go off. You know, Pacino was the babyface, and Pacino was chasing him down, but you wanted De Niro to gun down the cop. And it was one of those things where I think that just kind of resonated, like, wow, like, yeah, depending on how you tell the story, you know. So I just, that was the perfect time. I mean, like, you know, I was given the promise that they were going to go with me for years, give me the Backlund push. And then, you know, in 11 months of just like, this isn't working, and we're going to go with Sean, we're going to go through Brett. I didn't have a problem with it, you know. But the thing was, I said, as long as I get to come out of it the way I want to come out of it. And, you know, I got to turn basically heel that night on Brett and on the refs. And then when we went into Richmond, it was like, all right, now it's on. So.
No, it's unbelievable, and it holds up, and that's great to bring up, Heat, because yeah, that is a movie that also a lot of movies stole that formula, and you love that kind of thing where you can root for the bad guy, and you guys made being a bad guy in wrestling cool because not only are you throwing up hand signals that a generation of kids would steal and still steal to this day. But, I'm just going to use personal experience. You threw on an NWO shirt and you were 15, 16 years old. You felt like you were adapting the mantra of the NWO. You were for life, and you felt about just as cool as anybody on TV because it was like a movement. But I got to say it, it all spawned in Richmond that night when you guys started to take over the night after you slammed Easy E through the Great American Bash mat
Right,
the night
right.
before.
Yeah, that was the first night we basically became aggressive. Before then we were kind of, then shortly after that, I think it was in Charlotte, maybe the next Monday is when we brought out the aluminum baseball bats. So it's just like, and then that was Sullivan. Sullivan knew that, two things sell in wrestling, that's sex and violence. And, we didn't have, we had the Nitro Girls, which, was tame compared to what, the WWE did later. But as far as violence, I mean, aluminum baseball bats is about, and that was a casino call. To me, that's one of the. I mean, that's such a mind-numbing scene when he beats it. They're beating his brother with those aluminum baseball bats, and then they take him to Joe Pesci. But when they're beating his brother, and it's you're killing him, it's just like. I mean, you can't. I can't even imagine my brother, like watching my brother get beat with aluminum baseball bats in front of me. So, nice thought.
Yeah. But the NWO was so cool, and it's awesome that we're going to be getting the chance to get Hall, Nash, and Bischoff together again. What's it like when the Outsiders and even Eazy are together? Is it like good old times, reliving the past of the NWO?
I mean, it is. I mean, but it's one of those things that it's almost like every time, like, especially with the three of us, because the three of us were kind of all there was at the beginning. It was because he was WCW and we were the Invaders. This is before the third man was unveiled. So basically, he was the foil, and we were the. We were the Invaders. So, I mean, he was kind of representing WCW, and he did such a good job. And it was his idea, and it was just along the way tweaked here and there. But I mean, it was conceptually, like when he laid it out to me before I even decided to come over. I knew it would. I mean, I remembered the angle a little bit from Japan, but of course, you weren't there to witness any kind of electricity, and the Japanese crowd is so different than the American crowd. But he sold me on it. I was like, and once again, that thing doesn't work if Scott doesn't get off. If his contract doesn't run out 6 days before mine. So I mean, two of the top four guys leaving within a week and showing up on the other network was huge. So I mean, the stars were definitely lined up for that thing. And but when we're together, man, it's almost like, wow, man, can you believe that's something we did, especially in professional wrestling when you feel like you've seen everything. It's just still like this, and it's still a very hot selling T-shirt. Like they put out the satin jackets, they sold well. So I mean, it's just like anything with NWO on it sells. And the thing is I think it resonates also to, like, the young kids. I mean, 8-year-old kids come up to us and give us the click sign. So, I mean, it's one of those things like, I guess when we said it was for life, I guess it is.
Very, very true. And it's great that not only does that NWO T-shirt an all-time bestseller, and it's still selling today, and you still see it all over the place today. it's like there's a certain vibe to the NWO. It's different. It's cool. You know, the Too Sweet, the For Life. And you and Hall were like, you know, obviously the Hogan heel turn was huge, and you know, it was like water cooler talk. But you and Hall were the heart and soul. I mean, you guys were, you know, the glue, and you guys made it cool, and you made Hogan cool, which was almost unthought of at that point in time.
Yeah, I think what it was too was, you know, like when I met Scott, like, you know, like he was more of a country western guy than, you know, I was, you know, I was born and raised in Detroit, so I was always kind of a Motown guy. And then, like, once West Coast rap got really hot, especially Death Row, it was like we started listening to Death Row a lot in the car, and, like, you know, there was, you know, a lot of people. It was an old Mac 10 song, and in this Mac 10 song, they robbed this McDonald's, and one dude says to the other dude in the car, he says, "Man, I've been wanting to do that for 2 years." The other dude says, "Man, I've been wanting to do that for life." And that's what we got. I mean, so we got like most of our catchphrases and things like that we got from all West Coast rap. So immediately then I remember I put my headband on backwards like Tupac. You know, he was a 35-year-old white guy putting his headband on backwards. But, you know, it worked, you know. I mean, it was just like because people were, you know, MTV was red hot, and people were watching MTV raps, and then they were watching wrestling, and you know, we would have said, "Well, we'll just go ahead, we'll cross pollinate this ourselves." Like we know this is what the hottest thing is right now, because 2 years earlier than that, the Chronic came out. So it was actually maybe 93 Chronic came out. Yeah, I think Chronic came out in 93. But I mean, like that was when Dre and everybody else just kind of blew up. And so, yeah, it was, like I said, you know, just everything just kind of fell into place, and it was, you know, you couldn't do that now.
No way. And to think back at that point, and the end, you know, right before the NWO, I was like, I don't know, the wrestling business is kind of like, yeah, you know, it's okay. I mean, this WWF is okay, WCW is okay, but then the NWO hit, and man, you guys changed wrestling forever. And then you saw millions upon millions of people watch. You ever kind of sit back and think and reflect and say, me and Hall especially, and you could throw Hogan and the NWO in the mix, obviously, but you guys were kind of like the trendsetters to all that. And even to Austin and Austin versus Vince, you guys kind of set it off.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and the thing was, is like I always say, you know, like we showed Vince, you know, how to build the Saturn V, and then and then once we built it, he, you know, kicked our astronauts out of the capsule and said, "I got it from here." You know.
Absolutely. And then obviously Austin and McMahon took off. But with the NWO, I just, you know, looking back, I remember like everything was so epic, whether it's Sting or, you know, you beating Goldberg's streak. It's just so many things kind of happen. And you were always kind of the mainstay and always kind of the heart and soul, even of WCW at that point. Looking back at the NWO, would that be kind of like your crowning achievement, would you say, in your wrestling career?
Oh yeah, I mean, like when people like, I think if you want to look at somebody's career, always look at when they sign a belt. You know, when a guy signs like a championship belt, whatever he puts, if he puts Hall of Fame, then that's his crowning achievement. If he puts, you know, 16-time world champion, then that's his crowning achievement. Like me, I always put Kevin Nash, NWO for life. Like that's what I put when I sign a belt. Like that's I think my legacy will be part of the NWO. Because the Click was never featured, but to me the Click, you know, the Click is really the crowning achievement. Because that's 5 guys that, you know, withstood the stand, you know, just the time of the business. And at one point, it was like the NWO was on one channel and DX was on the other, and it was like all 5 of the Click, basically, you know, in these 2 factions. So
yeah, and at one point, I mean, people were going to say the Click ruled wrestling, and you had your people that were detractors against it. You had people that were in favor of it. But at the end of the day, I don't know many other groups of friends that had DVDs and T-shirts and all this merchandise made out of a friendship at the end of the day. So it's satisfying. You guys always said you stuck together, and look what happens after all these years. You end up really, you guys get to share that platform of being the clique.
Right. I mean, it's just, to me, like, it's one of those things, like, you get that status where, I think at the beginning of the click DVD, they talked to Sean. Sean says, a lot of people dislike this, a lot of people this and that. And he says, but after all these years, they're still talking about us. They're still talking about what we did. So obviously, a lot of the things we did were spot on. So
yeah. Absolutely. And hey, that's going to be a huge topic at TMPT Con 2 on Saturday, May 19th in Richmond, Virginia. Of course, you can go to our website, which is tmptofwrestling.com. We've got all the information, all the ticket information there, where it's going to be Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and Eric Bischoff, as well as a host of other characters that will be in attendance that day. It's going to be one hell of a day. It's going to be an event done the way we want an event to be done. And of course, we need the NWO there because we wouldn't have it any other way. Because like we said, when you're NWO for life. So Kevin,
for life.
Yeah, for life. Hey, just like a fine wine, Kevin Nash, Big Daddy Cool, gets better with age.
Thanks, my man.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates.